The invisible thread Amara Velez moved through the grand hallways of Westbrook Estate like a ghost, trained to be invisible yet essential. The marble floors reflected the crystal chandeliers overhead, creating patterns of light that danced across her plain gray uniform. At 26, she had already spent 5 years caring for the immaculate rooms of the $50 million mansion, learning to anticipate needs before they were spoken, to clean without being seen, to exist without disturbing the air. Today was different. The estate hummed with unusual energy as staff prepared for the annual Westbrook Technologies charity gala. Amara had been reassigned from her usual duties to help with preparations, which meant more interaction with the Westbrook family than she typically endured. Velez! Mrs. Peterson, the head of household staff, called sharply. The floral arrangements for the East Wing haven't arrived. Go call the florist and sort it out immediately. Amara nodded, slipping away to handle yet another crisis. She didn't mind the extra work. Every hour meant more money to send to her grandmother in Puerto Rico, who was raising Amara's young brother after their parents' accident 2 years ago. In the quiet of the service corridor, Amara dialed the florist, discovering the delivery had been delayed by a traffic accident. As she hung up, a deep voice startled her. Problems with the flowers? She turned to find Dominic Westbrook watching her with curious eyes. At 34, he had already transformed his family's old money investment firm into a cutting-edge technology empire. His presence was commanding, tall with broad shoulders and features too sharp to be conventionally handsome, but striking nonetheless. His steel-gray eyes seemed to evaluate everything as assets or liabilities. Just a delay, Mr. Westbrook, Amara replied, lowering her gaze. They'll arrive in 2 hours. Which won't work for the photographer scheduled at 1, he stated flatly. No, sir, I've already thought of a solution. We can rearrange the existing arrangements from the West Wing temporarily for the photos, then replace them when the new delivery arrives. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps. Smart. Most people would just panic and wait. He studied her name tag. Amara Velez. You've worked here long? 5 years, sir. He nodded once. Carry on. Throughout the day, Amara felt his eyes following her occasionally as she orchestrated her flower solution, quietly directing junior staff and solving problems before they reached Mrs. Peterson. The gala preparations continued around her, a swirl of expensive perfumes and designer suits sweeping through rooms she had cleaned countless times. That evening, disaster struck. One of the new servers, nervous and overwhelmed, collided with a guest, sending a full glass of red wine cascading down the woman's cream designer gown. The shriek that followed silenced the room. Amara, who had been refreshing flower arrangements nearby, immediately assessed the situation. The woman, Dominic's ex-girlfriend and business partner Vivian Drake, was already creating a scene. The young server looked terrified, close to tears. Incompetent fool, Vivian spat. Do you have any idea how much this Givenchy cost? You'll be paying it off for years. Amara slipped between them, a damp napkin already in hand. Please allow me, Ms. Drake. This fabric responds best to immediate cold water treatment. Get away from me, Vivian snapped. This imbecile has ruined my evening and probably my dress. Perhaps. Dominic's voice cut through the tension as he approached. We could remember the purpose of tonight's gala, supporting children who have far less than a designer dress to worry about. The crowd murmured uncomfortably. Amara worked, quickly, blotting the stain while everyone was distracted by Dominic's arrival. Lime soda water will lift this completely, she whispered to the rattled server. Bring some quickly. As the crisis diffused, Amara tried to slip away, but felt a hand gently touch her elbow. Thank you, Dominic said quietly, for protecting him. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Amara felt truly seen in this house where she'd been invisible. For years. Everyone deserves dignity, Mr. Westbrook, she replied simply, even when they make mistakes. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, perhaps, of something he'd been missing among the glittering, calculated relationships that filled his world. Neither knew it then, but an invisible thread had just connected them, one that would eventually prove stronger than all the wealth and power surrounding them. Stolen conversations. The Westbrook estate settled into its nighttime routine, lights dimming across the sprawling property until only security fixtures illuminated the manicured grounds. Inside, Amara moved through the silent kitchen, preparing a cup of chamomile tea, a small ritual she allowed herself after most staff had retired to their quarters. It had been 3 weeks since the gala, 3 weeks of returning to invisibility, though something had changed. Occasionally, she would look up from polishing silver or arranging flowers to find Dominic Westbrook's gaze on her, thoughtful and questioning, before he would nod slightly and continue on his way. Tonight, the house felt especially empty. The family had hosted a business dinner, but guests had departed hours ago. Amara had stayed late to help with the cleanup, preferring the extra hours to lying awake in her small staff room. "You're still here?" The voice startled her. Dominic stood in the kitchen doorway, his tie loosened and jacket discarded. He looked tired, not physically, but in a deeper way that even his wealth couldn't remedy. "Just finishing up, Mr. Westbrook," Amara replied, setting her tea aside. "I can leave if you need privacy." "No," he said quickly, then more measured. "No, please. I could use some normal conversation." Amara hesitated. Staff were discouraged from personal interactions with the family, but something in his expression, a weariness she recognized, made her nod. "Would you like some tea, sir?" A small smile touched his lips. "Only if you drop the sir. It's just Dominic." And so began their first real conversation, awkward at first, him sitting at the kitchen island while she stood nearby, until he insisted she sit too. They spoke of simple things: the unseasonably warm autumn, a documentary he'd recently watched, about coral reefs, her grandmother's recipe for sofrito that made even basic rice extraordinary. "Why housekeeping?" he asked eventually. "You're clearly intelligent, well-spoken." Amara considered deflecting, but decided on honesty. "My parents died in a car accident 2 years ago. My brother Mateo is 14, living with my grandmother in Puerto Rico. This job provides stability, healthcare, and enough to support them and save for Mateo's education." She shrugged. "Dreams can wait when family needs you." "What dreams?" he asked, leaning forward slightly. "Environmental engineering," she answered, surprising herself with her candor. "I was 2 years into my degree when the accident happened." Something shifted in his expression. "The foundation we raised money for at the gala, it offers scholarships." "No. I've applied twice." She smiled ruefully. "Very competitive." They talked until midnight when Amara finally stood, gathering her courage. "May I ask you something now?" He nodded, looking genuinely curious. "Why does someone who has everything look so unfulfilled?" Instead of offense, his face showed surprise, then consideration. "Perceptive," he murmured. "Perhaps because everything I have was predetermined. The company, the responsibilities, even many of the relationships. Nothing really chosen. The honesty between them hung in the air, delicate and unexpected." "Good night, Dominic," she said softly, washing her cup and placing it on the rack. "Good night, Amara." Their midnight conversations became a secret ritual over the following weeks. Not every night, but whenever they both found themselves awake in the quiet hours, him escaping business pressures, her extending her workday. They would meet in the kitchen or sometimes the small library adjacent to the staff quarters. They discovered unexpected commonalities. Both loved obscure historical documentaries, preferred mountains to beaches, and shared a passion for problem-solving. Dominic spoke of business challenges in ways that revealed his brilliant mind, but also his ethical struggles with family expectations. Amara shared stories of Puerto Rico, her brother's soccer achievements, and her dreams of developing sustainable water systems for communities like her grandmother's. "You see the world differently," he told her one night as they stood on the service balcony, watching a thunderstorm roll across the estate grounds. "Most people I know see only opportunities for profit or status. You see connections between people, environments, choices." "That's because I've lived in both worlds," she replied. "When you clean the homes of the wealthy by day and return to a staff dormitory at night, you understand that money creates different realities. But it doesn't change what matters." Lightning illuminated his face, and Amara caught an expression that made her heart quicken. He was looking at her not as staff, not even as a friend, but as something more dangerous. "What matters to you, Dominic?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the rain. He stepped closer. "Increasingly, authenticity, integrity." His hand moved hesitantly toward hers. "You." Their fingers touched, a connection more electric than the lightning above them. For one breathless moment, the vast differences between their worlds disappeared, until reality intruded with the harsh ring of his phone. The board chairman, requiring immediate attention for a crisis in their Singapore office. "I have to take this," he said, regret evident in his voice. Amara nodded, already stepping back, rebuilding the necessary distance between them. "Of course." As he answered the call and walked away, Amara stood alone in the rain-washed night, knowing they had crossed a boundary that could not be uncrossed. These stolen conversations had become dangerous, not just to her employment, but to her heart. What neither realized was that their private moments had not gone unnoticed. Earlier that evening, Vivian Drake had arrived unannounced, seeking Dominic for a business matter. Finding him absent from his study, she had glimpsed two figures on the distant balcony, too close, too familiar, and immediately understood the threat to her carefully laid plans for a merger between their companies, sealed with a strategic marriage. By morning, whispers would begin spreading through the house like poison, setting in motion events that would force both Amara and Dominic to decide what they were willing to sacrifice for choices truly their own. Shadows of disapproval. The morning broke with unusual tension at Westbrook Estate. Amara sensed it immediately, in the averted gazes of fellow staff, in the hushed conversations that stopped when she entered rooms, in Mrs. Peterson's particularly cold demeanor as she reassigned Amara from the main house to the rarely used guest cottages. "Is something wrong?" Amara finally asked as she collected cleaning supplies. Mrs. Peterson's thin lips pressed together. "The Westbrooks have certain standards, Amara. Staff who forget their place don't remain staff for long." The implication was clear. Somehow, their midnight conversations had been discovered. By midday, Amara was scrubbing bathrooms in the farthest cottage when her phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "Need to talk." Garden maze, center clearing, 3 p.m. Their heart raced. Meeting openly would only confirm suspicions, yet she couldn't ignore him. At precisely 3, she slipped away during her break, taking the groundskeeper's path to avoid being seen. The maze's center clearing featured a small stone fountain surrounded by blooming hydrangeas. Dominic paced near the water, his usual composed, demeanor fractured with worry. When he saw her, relief washed over his face. "You came." "I shouldn't have," she replied, keeping distance between them. "People are talking already." "I know." His jaw tightened. "Vivian saw us on the balcony last night. By breakfast, she'd informed my mother, who then called an emergency family meeting." Amara felt sick. "About me? A housekeeper?" "About me," he corrected gently. "About controlling me as they always have." He stepped closer. They're concerned I'm jeopardizing the Mercer-Drake merger. The technology partnership? Amara had overheard discussions about this massive business deal for months. It's more than that. They want a marriage alliance. Me and Vivienne uniting. The company's through a suitable partnership, as my mother calls it. His disgust was evident. I've been refusing for months, but now they're using you as leverage. Me? They're threatening to fire you. Ensure you're blacklisted from service in any connected household. His hands clenched. Unless I come to my senses and honor my family obligations. Amara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. This job was everything, her grandmother's medicine, Mateo's education, her own stability. Then you must do what they ask, she said firmly, though her heart cracked with each word. I'll request a transfer to another property. Perhaps the London estate. No. Dominic's voice was steel. I'm 34 years old, and I've let them dictate every significant choice in my life. Not this time. He took her hands. Not about you. Be realistic, she urged. I'm a housekeeper with an unfinished degree and family responsibilities. You're unhappy, he finished. Except when I'm with you. The fountain bubbled between them, a reminder of time passing. Amara gently extracted her hands. We need time to think clearly. This isn't just about feelings. It's about livelihoods, responsibilities, realities. Reluctantly, he nodded. 2 days. I'll handle things until then. Trust me? How could she not, when he looked at her that way? 2 days, she agreed. But they wouldn't get 2 days. That evening, as Amara returned to the staff quarters, she was summoned to the main office where a stern-faced Mrs. Peterson and Regina Westbrook, Dominic's mother, awaited. Regina, elegant, steel-haired, and cold as January. Didn't bother with pleasantries. Ms. Velez, I'll be direct. Your position here is terminated, effective immediately. Amara felt the blood drain from her face. May I ask why? Inappropriate fraternization with a family member, Mrs. Peterson stated flatly. I've arranged a generous severance, Regina continued, sliding a folder across the desk. 6 months' salary on the condition you sign this non-disclosure agreement and leave the property tonight. Amara stared at the document, mind racing. 6 months' salary was substantial, enough to support her family while she found new work. But the NDA's terms were clear. No contact with any Westbrook ever. And if I refuse? Regina's smile didn't reach her eyes. Then you receive standard 2 weeks' notice, and I ensure no household in our considerable social circle will hire you. Additionally, the scholarship committee reviewing your brother's recent application would receive certain concerns about the family's character. The threat to Mateo's future made Amara's decision immediate. I'll sign. Wise choice. Regina stood. Mrs. Peterson will supervise while you collect your belongings. A car is waiting to take you to a hotel tonight. May I say goodbye to... No, Regina cut her off. Dominic is in meetings until late. This matter is closed. Within an hour, Amara sat in the back of a town car, watching Westbrook Estate disappear behind her. She had signed away her right to contact Dominic, to explain why she'd left without a word. The severance check felt heavy in her pocket, both salvation and prison sentence. Meanwhile, across town, Vivian Drake sipped champagne in a private dining room with Dominic, who checked his watch repeatedly. Expecting someone? She asked with a knowing smile. I have a late call with Tokyo, he replied, distracted. Interesting. I heard your little housekeeper had a call of her own, with movers. She savored his sudden attention. Your mother can be quite efficient when protecting family interests. What are you talking about? His voice was dangerously quiet. Amara Velez was terminated this afternoon, probably halfway to nowhere by now, with a lovely severance package and an NDA that prevents her from ever contacting you. Vivian reached for his hand. It's better this way, Dominic. She was never part of our world. Dominic pulled away, already dialing his phone. What have you done? But calls to the estate confirmed the truth. Amara was gone. Her staff quarters empty. Her personal line disconnected. No forwarding address. No message left. His mother wasn't answering his calls. That night, two people lay awake in different parts of the city. One in a luxury penthouse surrounded by everything money could buy, the other in a modest hotel room, with all her possessions in 2 suitcases, both feeling the weight of worlds determined to keep them apart, and both beginning to calculate exactly what they were willing to risk to find their way back to each other. The price of freedom. The Westbrook Technologies headquarters dominated the city skyline, 70 stories of glass and steel reflecting clouds and ambition in equal measure. On the 68th floor, Dominic sat motionless behind his desk, staring at the contract before him. The Mercer-Drake merger documents awaited his signature, culminating months of negotiation and generations of family planning. 2 weeks had passed since Amara vanished. 2 weeks of unanswered questions, corporate maneuvering, and growing resolve. His intercom buzzed. Your mother and the board members have arrived, Mr. Westbrook. Send them in. The boardroom filled with the architects of his predetermined life. His mother Regina, immaculate in Chanel, his uncle Harrison, the family patriarch, Vivian, and her father Richard Drake, the company's legal team, and major shareholders. 15. People who collectively believed they owned his future. Excellent news, everyone, Regina announced, taking her seat at Dominic's right. After some family discussions, Dominic has agreed to move forward with both aspects of our arrangement. The merger documents are prepared, and we've set a date for the engagement announcement next month. Congratulations circulated while Dominic remained silent, watching the self-satisfaction on their faces. Before we proceed, he finally spoke, I'd like to clarify something. He opened a leather portfolio. I've had my personal legal team prepare an alternative proposal. Confusion rippled through the room. His mother's smile froze. Alternative to what, exactly? Harrison demanded. To everything. Dominic distributed documents with calm precision. I'm exercising my option to sell my controlling shares in Westbrook Technologies. The room erupted. Regina snatched the paper, face pale. This is absurd. To whom? To you, all of you. I'm offering my 37% stake to current board members and family, proportional to existing holdings. He met each shocked gaze. At 8% below market value. You can't be serious, Vivian hissed. This company is your birthright. A birthright I never chose, he countered, and one that comes with too many conditions. Richard Drake pounded the table. This jeopardizes the entire merger. Not necessarily, Dominic replied. The merger can proceed without me. I'm simply removing myself from the equation. His mother leaned close, voice low and dangerous. This is about that girl, that housekeeper. This is about my life, he corrected. Though yes, your handling of Amara clarified exactly how far you'd go to maintain control. We protected you from a gold digger who refused to tell me where. You sent her even when I tracked her down, he interrupted. Who turned down my help because she didn't want to damage my relationship with my family. Who values integrity more than comfort. His voice hardened. Everything you claim to value but don't practice. Harrison was already conferring with lawyers, examining the offer. The terms are legitimate, but Dominic, this is impulsive. Your entire inheritance, I'm keeping my personal investments and grandfather's trust, enough to live comfortably if not extravagantly. He stood. My decision is final. You have 48 hours to accept, or I'll offer the shares on the open market. The threat hung in the air. Outside buyers could disrupt the family's control entirely. You'd walk away from everything. Vivian's disbelief was genuine. For a housekeeper? For myself, he corrected, though Amara's face filled his mind. And for the chance to build something that's actually mine. The next 48 hours transformed Dominic's life. The board accepted his offer with frigid formality. His mother refused to speak to him directly, communicating only through lawyers. By Friday afternoon, papers were signed, transferring his controlling interest in the family company. His resignation as CEO followed immediately. That evening, he stood in his penthouse surrounded by half-packed boxes when his private elevator announced an arrival. Regina Westbrook entered, surveying the disarray with evident distaste. "So you're actually going through with this madness?" "The papers are signed, Mother. It's done." She circled the room, trailing fingers across surfaces as if checking for dust. "Where will you go?" "I've purchased a brownstone downtown. Smaller, but sufficient." "And then what? Play at being ordinary?" Her voice dripped with disdain. "You've thrown away a legacy for a romantic fantasy." Dominic continued packing books, refusing to engage with her anger. "I've exchanged one legacy for the chance to build another." "She won't make you happy. When the novelty wears off, you'll see the truth. She'll never fit in our world." "I'm not asking her to." He finally faced his mother. "I'm leaving it." Regina's composure cracked slightly. "The family won't welcome you back when this fails." "I know." Something like genuine concern flickered across her features. "You were raised for privilege, Dominic. You have no idea how to live without it." "I'll learn." He approached her, seeing for the first time not just the calculating matriarch, but a woman genuinely believing she'd protected her son's interests. "I don't expect you to understand this choice now. Maybe never. But it's mine to make." She squared her shoulders, dignity intact. "Harrison is calling an emergency family meeting. Your cousins will divide your responsibilities. The engagement announcement with Vivian is canceled." "I'm sorry for any embarrassment this causes you," he offered, meaning it. She reached the elevator, then turned back. "Your father would be disappointed." The doors closed on her final attempt to wound him. Dominic stood alone in the emptying penthouse, feeling a complex mixture of grief and liberation. The following week tested his resolve in unexpected ways. His phone and email flooded with messages from confused friends, opportunistic business contacts, and gossip columnists seeking exclusive comments on his breakdown. Former colleagues avoided him on the street. His longtime tailor suddenly couldn't fit him for appointments. The isolation was startling. For the first time, Dominic recognized how many of his relationships had been based on his position rather than his person. Meanwhile, finding Amara proved challenging. She'd left no forwarding address, and the severance agreement prevented staff from disclosing information. His private investigator finally located her through her brother's school registration. She'd moved to a modest apartment across town and found work at a small, family-owned hotel. Standing outside the hotel, Valencia in the rain, Dominic hesitated. He'd practiced what to say, how to explain the choices he'd made, but doubt suddenly gripped him. What if she'd moved on? What if she didn't want the complications he brought? The hotel's worn elegance was worlds away from Westbrook Estate's opulence. Through the window, he saw her at the reception desk, arranging flowers in a simple vase, creating beauty from limited resources, just as she always had. Taking a deep breath, Dominic pushed open the door, the small bell announcing his arrival. Amara looked up, her composure faltering when she recognized him. "Dominic," she whispered, glancing nervously at her manager's office. "I need to talk to you," he said simply. "Please." She gestured to a small courtyard visible through side doors. 5 minutes. That's all I can spare during shift." Under the shelter of a weather-worn gazebo, surrounded by rain and carefully tended garden beds, Dominic finally told her everything. His decision to sell his shares, his break from the family, his search for her. "Why?" she asked, genuine confusion in her eyes. "Why would you give up everything?" "Because it wasn't everything," he answered. "It was just things. position, power, none of it mine by choice. And now? Now I'm starting over. I've invested in a small tech incubator focused on environmental solutions. He smiled slightly. Including sustainable water systems. Recognition dawned in her eyes. My dream. I can't offer you the security of Westbrook wealth anymore, he said carefully. Just the chance to build something meaningful. Together, if you want. Amara studied him, the man who had sacrificed an empire, standing before her in the rain, offering not luxury but partnership. Your 5 minutes are up, Ms. Velez, called the hotel manager from the doorway. She nodded acknowledgement, then turned back to Dominic. I finish at 6. It wasn't an answer, but it was a beginning. Gardens from ashes one year could change everything. The morning sun filtered through linen curtains in the modest brownstone, casting warm patterns across the hardwood floor. Amara sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by architectural drawings and environmental impact reports, her laptop open to a spreadsheet of funding projections. A half-empty coffee mug sat forgotten beside her notes on water filtration systems. The past 12 months had transformed her life in ways she once couldn't have imagined. After that rainy evening at Hotel Valencia, she and Dominic had started, again, slowly, carefully, building something honest between them. She had continued working at the hotel while finishing her environmental engineering degree, now just 1 semester from completion. He had channeled his business expertise into Regenerate Solutions, the small startup incubator focusing on sustainable technologies. The sound of the front door opening broke her concentration. Success, Dominic called, entering the kitchen with a recycled paper bag of groceries. His designer suits had given way to quality basics, dark jeans and a simple button-down with rolled sleeves. The sharp edges of his corporate persona had softened, though his intensity remained intact now. Directed toward projects he truly believed in. The neighborhood association approved our proposal? Amara looked up hopefully, unanimously. He set down the groceries to kiss her, lingering a moment longer than necessary. We break ground on the community garden next month. The water reclamation system will be the pilot for the larger municipal project. Pride surged through her. Their first neighborhood initiative, transforming an abandoned lot into a community garden with innovative water conservation technology, had faced skepticism from local officials until Dominic's presentation yesterday. That's wonderful. She squeezed his hand. Any word from the grant committee? His smile widened. Preliminary approval. They want to visit the site next week, but it looks promising. A year ago, such news would have seemed trivial to a man who commanded billions. Now, this $500,000 grant meant everything to their fledgling enterprise. Life had found a new rhythm, challenging but authentic. Dominic had weathered the transition from corporate titan to startup founder with determination, though not without difficult moments. The first time his credit card was declined at dinner had been a humbling experience. The whispers, when they encountered former business associates, tested his resolve. Yet each challenge reinforced his conviction that he had made the right choice. For Amara, adjusting to their relationship had been equally complex. She had insisted on maintaining her financial independence, continuing her hotel job while studying, contributing equally to household expenses despite Dominic's protests. Only recently had she agreed to reduce her hotel hours to focus on their growing company, where her technical expertise complemented his business acumen. Oh, I almost forgot, Dominic said, unpacking groceries. Letter came for you, he handed her a thick envelope bearing her grandmother's distinctive handwriting. Inside was a letter, along with school photos of her brother Mateo. She says the roof repairs are finished, Amara reported as she read, and Mateo made the regional soccer team. Her voice softened. She also says she's proud of me, of us. Unlike Dominic's family, Amara's grandmother had embraced their relationship, though initially with caution. When they had visited Puerto Rico 4 months ago, the older woman had observed them closely before finally nodding her approval over dinner, saying simply, "He sees you clearly. That's rare." The doorbell interrupted their domestic moment. Dominic checked his watch, looking puzzled. "We're not expecting anyone, are we?" When he opened the door, both were shocked to find Harrison Westbrook, Dominic's uncle and the current CEO of Westbrook Technologies, standing on their modest porch. "May I come in?" the older man asked, looking distinctly uncomfortable in surroundings, so far removed from his usual environment. Dominic hesitated, then stepped aside. Of course. In their small living room, the elder Westbrook seemed oversized somehow, his bespoke suit and commanding presence at odds with the simple, comfortable space. He declined coffee, coming directly to the point. "The family is concerned about recent developments," he began, addressing Dominic while pointedly ignoring Amara. "Specifically, your new company's partnership with Echelon Systems." Dominic's posture shifted subtly. Regenerate Solutions maintains various industry partnerships. Echelon is one of several. Echelon is positioning to acquire Microvision, one of our key suppliers, Harrison countered. "Your technical expertise gives them an edge we hadn't anticipated." Amara watched the interaction with growing understanding. This wasn't a family reconciliation, it was damage control. "I've broken no non-compete agreements," Dominic stated evenly. "Everything I'm doing is perfectly legal." "It's not about legality. It's about loyalty." Harrison's tone hardened. "Your mother is prepared to make amends. Return to the company as Chief Innovation Officer, and we'll integrate your environmental initiatives into our corporate structure, with proper resources." The defy offer hung in the air. Dominic glanced at Amara, then back to his uncle. "And the personal conditions? I assume there are some." Harrison cleared his throat. "Your personal life would remain your own, within reason." "Meaning?" "Discretion would be expected. Certain family events would require appropriate companionship." The implication was clear. Amara could be a private indulgence but never publicly acknowledged as his partner. "I see." Dominic's voice was dangerously calm. "And this generous offer comes because your family," Harrison replied, though his eyes said otherwise. "No," Dominic rose. "Because I'm proving more valuable or perhaps dangerous outside the family than within it." The older man's silence confirmed his assessment. "My answer is no," Dominic continued. "But you can tell my mother that she's welcome to visit, as a mother, not as a business associate, if she's interested in knowing her future daughter-in-law." Harrison's gaze snapped to Amara, who was as surprised as he by Dominic's words. "I see you've made your choice," Harrison said stiffly, standing to leave. At the door, he paused. "You know, you could have had everything." Dominic's arm slipped around Amara's waist. "I believe I do." After Harrison's departure, they stood in silence until Amara finally spoke. "Future daughter-in-law?" Dominic looked suddenly uncertain. "I had planned something more romantic. There's a ring upstairs that belonged to my grandmother. Not the family diamonds, but a simple emerald she loved because it was given with love, not obligation." He took her hands. "But yes, that's where I hope we're heading. If you want that too." "You just rejected millions to stay with me," she said softly. "I think your intentions are clear." "It wasn't a sacrifice," he insisted. "It was a choice for something better." That evening, they sat on their small rooftop garden, a far cry from Westbrook Estate's manicured grounds, but alive with vegetables, flowers, and possibilities. The ring fit perfectly, its modest emerald catching the sunset light. "We should invite your grandmother for the wedding," Dominic suggested as they watched the city lights emerge. "And Mateo could be our best man." "A small ceremony," Amara agreed. "Just people who truly care about us." "And afterward?" he asked. What do you want our life to look like? Truly? She considered the question seriously. I want our work to matter. I want to finish my degree and use it to help communities like my grandmother's. I want quiet evenings like this, and the freedom to build something meaningful together. No regrets about the life you could have had. The wealth, the privilege. Amara shook her head. That was never going to be my life, even if I'd stayed at Westbrook Estate. I would have always been staff, never family. She touched his face gently. But this life, where we're equals, building something together, this is real. There will be failures, he warned. The startup world is unpredictable. So is life, she replied. But we'll face it together. 2 years later, their small company had grown into a recognized leader in sustainable water solutions, providing systems for communities from Puerto Rico to West Africa. The brownstone now housed not just their home, but the company's design studio, where a diverse team developed increasingly innovative approaches to environmental challenges. Dominic had found unexpected fulfillment in creating something that existed, because of his choices, not his name. His relationship with his family remained complicated. His mother had eventually visited, maintaining a cool politeness toward Amara, while privately acknowledging to her son that he seemed genuinely happy. Several cousins had broken ranks to attend their wedding, beginning tentative bridges back to some family connections. For Amara, completing her degree had opened new professional horizons, but it was the balance she'd found that brought true satisfaction. Work that matched her values, a partner who respected her independence while supporting her dreams, and the ability to provide security for her brother and grandmother. On the 5th anniversary of the night they had reconnected at Hotel Valencia, they stood together on a hillside in Puerto Rico, overlooking the community where Amara had grown up. Below them, newly installed water filtration systems gleamed in the tropical sun, providing clean water to homes that had struggled for generations with contaminated wells. Was it worth it? Amara asked, watching children play around the new community center that housed the main filtration facility. Trading an empire for this? Dominic surveyed not the technology, but the transformed community, the tangible results of choices made with integrity rather than obligation. Some would say I lost everything, he acknowledged, but I see it differently. He pulled her close, their wedding bands catching the sunlight. I didn't risk it all for love. I gained everything because of it. Around them, gardens bloomed where once there had been only dust, living proof that the most valuable things in life are not what we inherit, but what we choose to build together.